how do you think you get people to really buy into this way of life? And when I say this way of life, this is how life actually operates. Like, how do we, besides doing shows like this and having conversations like this, you know, I know there's a lot of distractions, you know, there's material stuff, there's, you know, so much of it is popularity. You know, when I was a kid, they had a handful of channels on TV. So if you got on TV, you had to be something special. There was channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13.
And only 3 of them were network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at 12 o'clock, they went off.
Yeah.
Remember they had that peacock color thing going? Yeah.
With the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah. Now you got, you know, 5,000 channels. So everybody thinks that they're a star. And so this type of I don't want, it is kind of a fake reassurance that, hey, I'm a somebody, but it's predicated upon other people thinking of that,
right,
thinking that of you. What about what you think of you? How much time do people actually spend thinking about who the fuck am I? What am I doing?
Or even not even who, what am I?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, again, because of the, you know, the personality, our persona, you know, which is the what we project to people, you know, it actually comes, it's interesting, it comes from the ancient Greek theater, where the origin of theater was that the city-states in ancient Greece were always at war, and so there were huge numbers of orphans and widows, and the people, their spirits were really down, and so in Athens, the magi, which were the teachers and the spiritual people, said it was just like those old Judy Garland movies with Mickey Rooney. I know kids, let's put on a show. So they actually, the first dramas that they were writing to lift the spirits of the people of Athens, and they like Lysistrata and, you know, all that stuff. But the thing that's interesting is that they didn't trust the actors to express real emotion, so they had these really ornate wooden masks that if you were supposed to be unhappy, they had a wooden mask where tears were coming down, you know, and if you were supposed to be happy, it was a real kind of a caricature of what happy is, and they had to wear these wooden masks, and those masks were called the personae, and that was where the word personality came from. So it actually, a lot of times people use a personality to mask something that because they haven't really come to terms with what they are, you know, so they project this image of something, you know, and you know, and it's that's why it's always interesting when, you know, people have set these goals for themselves. Like, if I could just become a big actor, then I know I would be happy. And then when that happens, and that's another dead end, then it can be. That's why a lot of actors are, you know, they end up not that, you know, because they don't deal with what really is going on with them, because they think if they just achieve something that's going to solve all their problems. And there's a great saying that the king thinks the people are happy and the people think the king is happy, because the people don't have any responsibility and the king has all this responsibility, and the people thinks that the king would be happy because he has all this wealth, you know. And so, you know, it's like almost a cosmic scavenger hunt that we have.
It's a misunderstanding of epic proportions.
Yeah, boy, that's for sure. I was going to say it's it's one of those hunts where you try to figure something out, and then you know, what you find is not what you really are looking for. You know, you're trying to go with the external stuff, and you don't realize that the situation is something that has to be dealt with within, you know, finding out.
And what's really sad is I believe most people don't realize the fiction of their existence until they take that one last breath. And in that, I believe in that one moment that you realize, oh my God, I'm out of time.
Yeah.
All my bullshit, all my games, all my pretending, I'm out of time and it's too late. And I personally don't believe there's anything worse than too late. You know, and you know, my apologies, I didn't even introduce you. This is Steve Eastin, my brother, my friend. He's an actor, he's an author, he's a singer-songwriter, and just one of the most outstanding human beings that I have ever met. He had a gigantic hand in shaping me as a man. I I was fortunate enough to walk into his acting studio many, many years ago. And I think I was there for around 3 years. And I thought I was going to get acting lessons, which I was, but I was getting a lesson on how to be a human being, an authentic human being. So, we've done this sit down before many years ago, I think 10, 15 years ago.
It has been that long.
It's been that long. And I wanted to have you back because, as you know, I'm in the field of addiction services. I work with not only addicts, but I also work with their families, because most of the time, God bless the families of addicts, they mean well, but there needs to be some adjustments made. But today's podcast, I'd like it to be about the emptiness that human beings feel, which leads them to abuse, drugs and alcohol. And that's kind of what we are talking about now as human beings. Like, who are we? What is our job here? What is it that we're supposed to experience, and how are we supposed to achieve that? And how do we know if we're on to something authentic and real, or we've jumped on a bandwagon that has been predetermined for us by family or by our
society.
own insecurities or society. Yeah. Society can implement whatever it wants, but unless I have that initial insecurity in me, what Adolf Hitler did, he got a lot of people behind him. And they were not stupid people. A lot of those people were very intelligent, educated, but it astonishes me at what he was able to get people to do and get behind. So I want to have that conversation of what it means to be a human being. It seems to have escaped our generation, and I think this generation, we've never had a more comfortable and more convenient society as we have today, but we definitely can't say that we're the happiest.
Yeah, there's a great word that comes up often. It's bereft. It means without. And I'm not a big religious guy, but there's a beautiful truth in the Bible. There's beautiful truth in the Bhagavad Gita. There's beautiful truth in the writings of Joseph Campbell. There's just a lot of truth out there, but what they find is that they're pursuing beliefs that will make them feel better. And by definition, the word belief means accepting without proof. And so I think, I know I'm hearing you correctly, people are looking for the meaning of life when they should be looking for the experience of life. Because
Correct.
In every master says it's a truth which goes beyond all understanding, yet everybody runs around trying to understand it. And I find that interesting because I'm a student of this study called etymology, which is root words, where words come from. And the word understand in modern times has come to mean grasp intellectually. I understand what you're saying. I can figure it out. But the original meaning of the word understand was to surrender, to stand under. And I mean, Einstein, he's an incredible scientist, of course, but he was also an amazing philosopher. And he said the only thing we know for sure is that life is a mystery, and who doesn't love a great mystery? So you fall in love with the wonder of it, and instead of trying to classify it and put it into categories and sex and not sex, sects, but then instead of doing that, we should just be able to someone said once that people are always bitching about being on an airplane, how terrible and how crowded it is. And he said, don't you realize you're in a tube at 35,000 feet going 600 miles an hour? Everybody on the plane should just be going, whee!
Yeah. Yeah.
But we get these little focuses on things that we feel are unjust, and we feel bereft. So we have this void that wants to be filled, and I'm in awe of the work that you do, and I think it's some of the most important work that can be done on the planet, But it's said that people just are trying to fill this space, this hole that they have in their experience, in their life experience, and unfortunately, one of the things that partially fills it is self-medication. That's been going on since the beginning of time, And some of it is therapeutic, but when it becomes a huge problem when it becomes habitual and all that. So that desire to just feel whole, to feel fulfilled.
I think it takes courage. I think what people are lacking today is the courage to explore that. And in the field that I'm working in, courage can never develop because most family members take the struggle out of the life of their addict. In the name of protection
and love,
yeah. What you're doing is you're dismantling the very method that builds grit, and you're taking that away. And without grit, you can't develop courage. And so without courage, how can you explore? Imagine if our astronauts were afraid to go up in space. We wouldn't explore anything.
Right.
It takes a certain amount of courage to be authentic, to let go of the masks that you were talking about. Masks are they're walls of protection, but they're simultaneously the walls of imprisonment.
Yeah.
They limit you.
Well, they look really uncomfortable too. I mean,
they
the
do.
original with them is just with a
but if you're
horrible word.
hiding, they're wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're hiding, they're wonderful. Yeah. So I don't think, I don't remember where I seen it, but I think the odds of being born on this planet as a human being, I think it was like 500 billion to 1 to just coming as a human being. And then you get here and then you hide. Like, what a waste. Now, I understand that from childhood, people can work on you and get you to believe anything that as a human being, if they work on you long enough, they can get you to believe that this cup is God. Yeah. That's what we do. But I think that not everybody has a great childhood. I certainly didn't. But I still think that it's my job to strive and to try and to seek. To your comment about beliefs, you can't believe something that you know. You can only believe something that you don't know. And the problem that I have with beliefs is that it stops the searching. A conclusion, like when you think about the word conclusion, there's a finality to it. The conclusion of your life is death. So conclusions in reality are death. And so I think as human beings, we have to stop looking for the meaning of life. There is no meaning to life. That's the beauty of it. There's no meaning. The meaning to life is how profoundly did you experience life? That's all there is. We come with nothing. We leave with nothing. Everything that belongs to me will end up in a fucking thrift store one day, or my kids will get it and put it in the garage and never touch it. But what was my experience of my life on this planet?
How much of it was wasted in
fear, and doubt
and worry? I mean, worry is fascinating. I mean, if people again with the root words, but worry comes from the ancient Greek meaning to strangle. To strangle.
Correct.
So if you want to choke on life, if you want to, how if you choke when you're up at bat and there's men on base and you ground out, that's called choking. Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to choke on life, just worry about it. Because what happens is like if you got to have a root canal in a week, the problem is not really the root canal. The problem is that you go to the dentist in your mind 1,000 times before you go. That. And the way that they're discovering now with the latest studies of neuroscience, which I say that it makes me sound smarter than I am, but I am familiar with this particular area, is that thinking process is the voice in our head mulling it over, chewing on it, and the right brain hears that, and what happens is the right brain sees in images because the thoughts pass from the left brain through the corpus callosum to the right brain. And if there's a lot going on the left brain, there's very little activity in the right brain. But if what happens is that your body, when you start thinking about it, your body responds like you're at the dentist right now having a negative experience. So it actually creates fear, panic.
Well, that's what trauma is. That's one of the things that we do at our facility is, it's funny you mentioned that because that's what REM sleep does, REM sleep. Mm-hmm. What it does is it takes your traumas of the day. If something traumatic happens to you in the morning and you're worked up all day, but what's interesting is when you wake up the next morning, it seems to have settled. That's what REM sleep does. It processes your trauma and stores it correctly. But most people are reliving things that happened in the past or things that haven't even happened in the future. So they're in a state of constant
anxiety. Yeah,
and it poisons you.
Yeah, it literally poisons you because it releases this stuff. I'm trying to think what it's called, cortisol, and cortisol was evolutionary. Created by mankind to help us, because back in the day, we didn't have the longest fangs, and we didn't have the longest nails and stuff, and so we were getting the hell beat out of us by whatever was chasing us to eat us because we weren't the fastest, So over time we developed this thing called the adrenal gland, which when you get butterflies, it's actually adrenaline secreting into your stomach lining, and then it goes into your bloodstream. And so it makes you able to jump in fearful situations. It makes you capable of jumping higher, thinking faster, seeing further, and all of that stuff. But if it's constantly being released, it just fries you, and you end up just a mess. And that's why they actually, there's a great study that shows that the closer you are to the poverty center of a city, the shorter your lifespan is, because if you're in a really, really bad neighborhood, every time you step out the door, there's a chance you're going to get hurt. You're going to get mugged, you're going to get robbed, killed, something like that. And they've actually proven that the further you move out into the suburbs, out to the lifespan,
your system settles.
Yeah, 50. It's 50 in the inner city, 60 adjacent to the inner city, 70. But when you get out into the wealthy, where they, like this, and in this documentary, the CEO is really wonderful. He goes, "Look, people say that I get paid all this money because I'm under all this pressure. I'm not under any pressure. I come home from work, I can go out my front door and ride my horse. I got no pressure." He was really honest about it. But it literally not only shortens. It not only reduces the quality of your life because you have this constant tension.
Well, you're in panic mode.
Panic mode all the time, but it also reduces the length of your life, and that's one of the reasons why we need to, to make the middle a little bigger and not each extreme.
100%. One of the things that I wanted to touch on that you kind of jarred in me was there's a difference between being in panic mode and being in choiceless awareness. When we were in class, you used to always talk about walking through like a jungle cat, really tuned in and really aware and really being present. That's different than being under stress and pressure.
Absolutely.
It's the opposite of it.
It's the antithesis of it. Yeah, it is. It is. And it's something that is within our control, but it's so close to us we don't see the possibilities, because it has to do with something as essential as just breathing, remembering to breathe, because when we get under stress we forget to breathe. I often say that's why God, good woman that she is, invented the sigh, because people get so lost in thought and and that's the power of it.
It's a reset.
Yeah, and the conscious mind, when you have a thought, even if it's a positive thought, it's like I always say it's like a rock hitting a pane of glass. The rock hits in one spot, but then the cracks start to go off in all direction, and you'll end up, with it becoming a negative thing. And it's possible, and this sounds so simple, but it's the hardest thing in the world to do. It's possible to find the space between the end of one conscious thought, put a period, and then delay the onset of the next conscious thought, so that in between there is that space where you can be.
Yeah.
And it's been proven that if you do that, it actually lowers your cortisol, and that's why people practice yoga and meditation, and that's why I feel so fortunate. I learned how to meditate when I was I think I was 21 when I met my teacher, and he I learned how to meditate, and I've done it every day since. And it's not that I look forward to it, because
why don't we teach it in school?
It's starting to happen now. You know where it's
age.
happening a lot now? In prisons. My teacher, there's a Texas prison that cut their recidivism state, where people going back to prison, they cut it from like 78% to like 23% just by teaching people how to meditate. Because the illusions, the fears and the doubts is what were causing them to act out, and when they realized that they were creating their own inner jail cell, and they actually, it's what I feel, Eric, is that it's like this race between wisdom and cruelty and evil that is happening now. Because, every religion, the thing that I hate about it is it creates us and them. There's us, and we are, because we're right, and them. And I always find it interesting if you say us and them really fast. Say us and them really fast 5 times.
Us and them, us and them, us and them, us
S
and
and
them.
M, S and M. It comes out S and M. Sadomasochism. And it's because it's like racism. I mean, what happens is the shape of our skulls are a little bit different. The epicanthic fold for the Asians are present. The skin pigmentation is a little bit different. But other than that, it's only skin deep. Every other aspect of every human being is there's 1,000 things that are similar for every one thing that's different. And yet the one thing that's different has caused some of the greatest tragedies in my lifetime, and I think in the world's lifetime. Every lifetime.
There's no question. And lifetimes to come.
And if we don't,
lifetimes to come.
If mankind, that's why I was saying it's kind of a race. If we don't get it together, then
our success will be our failure.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. I listen to a lot of different genres of music, and I have listened to a lot of rap music, predominantly pain-driven rap music, and it's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who have lived under extreme amounts of stress, extreme amounts of
deprivation.
Pain and deprivation, and the studies show that when you cannot combat the forces that are causing that deprivation and stress, you're forced to take it out on each other.
Yeah.
And because it's got to come out, right?
Well, I had a personal experience of that. I was held up in 1981 by a couple of kids from South Central Los Angeles, really skinny kids, young, and they pulled a gun on me, and we got into it, and I got shot. And it blew my elbow apart, and because I covered my heart with my arm when he fired, and it hit me in my left elbow, and it's still all messed up. But after the surgery, the doctor came in, and I was laying there was a guy in the bed next to me, and I was laying with my arm up, and the doctor came in and said, "Mr. Eastin, I wanted to tell you that I'm leaving for a vacation, but I needed to talk to you first. We were able to save your arm." And I went, "Well, what?" I didn't even realize it was possible. But he said it was so shattered that they almost had to amputate my arm. But he said, "Unfortunately, it's going to be at a 45-degree angle for the rest of your life. It's going to be frozen." And the guy next to me was just from his accent, I could tell that he was. This is gonna. I don't care how it sounds. He was a redneck, and he said, "What happened?" I said, "Well, these kids, they shot me and they're robbing me." And he goes, "Doesn't it just make you want to go down to South Central and start killing ends?" And I said, man, I said, the truth is, if my mama was living on government cheese, I'd probably be out there robbing too. And this guy, he wanted to fight me, even though I was sitting there with my arm like that. But that's the thing. I don't hold any grudge. I mean, if in fact our Constitution was true, where all men are created equal, all people are created equal, then you wouldn't have some kids that get to go to Europe when they're 5 years old with their parents to see Notre Dame, and other kids that don't even know Notre Dame Cathedral exists because they can't they don't have the wherewithal to learn. I always, and again, I'm on a little bit of a rant here, but I'm gonna rant. I used to say Palisades High, but it's gone now, which is ironic. But I used to say when the bathrooms at Palisades High look like the bathrooms in Watts at the schools, then I'll say we've got equal opportunity. Because the bathrooms at Palisades High, you could eat off the floors. In Watts, they had holes in the ceilings and stuff growing out of the toilets, and because of the local funding, people just don't have opportunities.
There's no question. There's no way to debunk that statement. It's an absolute truth. My son, Junior, used to play football for I think it was Lincoln High, and I went to a game in Inglewood, and the field had holes in it, gopher holes in it. You can seriously injure yourself.
Yeah, break a leg.
And then we played in different areas, and beautiful artificial,
manicured.
And so it's there. But I still believe, with all that there, that as individuals, you can see. not everybody has the same opportunity to have the life that they want. But I'm more focused in on, I can't do anything I want in life because there are some limitations, and I have responsibilities, if you have kids, if you have a wife, stuff like that. But can you be how you want to be? Forget about doing what you want to do. As a human being, can we be how we want to be? Can we decide that me as a man, here's my box, okay? These are the values that I'm going to stand for. No matter what the outside life brings to my table, I am going to operate this way while I'm breathing on this planet, because this is the way that I want to be. And the reason I want to be this way is because of my experience of this life needs to happen the way I want it to happen. Because where do we experience life? On the outside or on the inside? Where do you hear me right now, Steve? Outside of yourself or inside of yourself?
Inside.
Yeah, where do you see me? Inside.
Doors of perception is what Aldous
everything
Huxley
happens
talked about.
on the inside.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that what happens on the inside, I don't need anybody's cooperation. That's got to happen the way that I want it to happen. What happens out here, it's a 50-50 proposition.
And I think that's going back to, I think that's why the recidivism rate dropped so much, because that's what these convicts were realizing, because it's so easy to be angry because you feel like you've been dealt a bad hand in life, and they have been often cases,
But it's all relative.
Yeah, but at the same time, they come to realize through meditation that it's not what happens, it's how you respond to what happens.
Which is the word response.
Yeah.
Ability, the ability to respond.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
how you going to be.
Yeah. Because no matter how bad you have it, the fact is that there's always someone somewhere that would love to be in your position. That's a fact. I knew and I think we talked about this before. I knew a kid that finished med school from UCLA and graduated, and he died that night in a car crash. That's like. That's one of the worst things that can happen. But is it worse than a 3-year-old who has leukemia?
No, that's. Yeah,
I mean, it's it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
It's all relative.
Well, that's that happens so often. We met because I am an acting teacher and an actor, and you came to my school, you use exactly what I use when. Because actors, they always feel so put upon, their dreams aren't coming true, because it's such a, such a long shot, because so many people want to do this, and so many people have parents that have ins, and it's just not fair, But they would come in and they go, why can't I get an agent? Why didn't I get that job? And I would say, okay, first you tell me why a 3-year-old gets leukemia. And if you can explain that to me,
I'll explain this to you.
Then we'll start working on your why. But up till if you can't do that, then just S the F up.
Yeah, I've always admired that about you, because your body of work. I mean, you've worked with people in the industry that most people would dream about. And I only know a few of them. You've worked with the best directors, De Palma, and you worked with Spielberg and DiCaprio and Nick Cage and one of your Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
On Field of Dreams. You've had some huge successes in this industry, and you didn't have an in. You worked for it. You rolled the dice, and you had two daughters to support at the same time. And I remember you telling me a story about being absolutely broke, having $300 left, and you got tires for your ex-wife, not knowing where the next meal was going to come from.
Yeah, man, that was real close to the chest at that point.
But that's the whole idea of being alive as a human being, is to roll the dice, because ultimately we're all dead.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, that's the Robert Frost thing, the path not taken. Everybody, you find a comfortable place, but you're not really happy there. But you have to give up that comfortable place to pursue something else. And one of my teachers used to. I love this analogy. I can't remember if it was my meditation teacher or Charles, but he talked. I think it was Prem. It was Prem Rawat. Guru Maharaji Prem Rawat was the guy that taught me to meditate. But he said it's like you're swinging through over the jungle on a rope. you know. And if you want to progress, you have to let go of one vine, or on a vine, you have to let go of that vine before you grab the next vine to keep going. But there's that moment where you're not hanging on to anything. And that moment when you're not hanging on to anything keeps you swinging back and forth on the same vine, you know.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week. And I use that analogy, but I use when you look at horses run, there's a point where all four legs are off the ground. That one instant paralyzes people. And I can tell you that for addicts and alcoholics, letting go of one rope and grabbing another, and for that split second being in midair, that is the thing that terrifies them from moving forward.
Yeah.
But they would if the family members wouldn't hold pillows under them.
Right, yeah.
No, we all have to roll the dice. I can't give you my grit. I can't give you my courage. You have to carry your own water in this life.
Well,
I can help you.
Yeah.
I can walk with you.
Yeah,
I can even
show
wait
you.
for
I can tell you when you're not doing it.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Stop that. Okay.
Yes.
Just stop that.
Yes.
That is not. That's fool's gold. That's fool's gold. You know. Yeah. There's there's a wonderful book and TED Talks that I really recommend for everybody. But I think it's particularly true because I have an addictive personality. But it just this woman named Jill Bolte Taylor. She wrote this thing called My Stroke of Insight, was when her left brain actually stopped working, and she was a neurobiologist from Harvard. And speaking of left brain stopping working, I forgot what got me into this story, but it doesn't matter. It's just
TED Talk.
Yeah, the TED Talk. What were we talking about before that?
The ropes.
Yes, yeah. Well, she. I'll just pick it up any old place because that's what we can do. But
absolutely,
she became a neurobiologist because her brother was schizophrenic, and that's another interesting root word because schizophrenia comes from the ancient Greek schizos, phrenos, and a lot of people think it means broken mind because their mind goes when you have schizophrenia, your mind goes. But it actually means broken heart, because the experience of having it is so traumatic for the families as well. So she became a neurobiologist to try to figure out why, and the way she said it was so poetic, it brought tears to my eyes. She said, I wanted to figure out why my brother couldn't process his dreams the way I could process my dreams. And so her left brain actually died in that, and she became pure right brain for a period of time. And that stroke of insight that she had, she experienced what it was like to have the voice that tells you what you need and what you have to have and what you're missing, and that voice that just keeps, in a way it like flogs us a little bit as we go through life, to have that completely away. And she said she became pure right brain. Then she became in that moment she became this, literally that wonderful expression from Buddhism, one with everything. She felt huge, enormous. She felt invulnerable. She felt just completely one with the universe. Oh, I know what it is. What brought me to this was, so she had this saying that someone actually painted on this piece of metal, and I found it. I think somebody brought it to the studio, because that's one of the things about teaching this, is you get a lot of people that bring you beautiful things, and it was what her saying was, you take responsibility for the energy you bring into this room. And that's what you're saying before, something about that really put me in mind of that. I mean, when you say it, if parents are constantly taking care of you, so that you don't have to take responsibility for the energy that you bring into the room, which is a very scattered, addictive energy, I would assume.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in the fact that, I don't know if it's pride or what it is, but I need to be a full functioning human being. I don't want the comforts. If it's going to dull my experience of being a human being, I don't want it. I want to work, and I want to strive, and I want to search, and I want to be conflicted, and I don't want to be safe. I don't know. I just feel this urgency about life. I don't want to be fooled. I don't want to be tricked by anything. I tell my wife, I said, look, I would be okay no matter what happened.
Yeah.
Whether we're in a big house or a little, I come from nothing. When I say nothing, I come from absolutely nothing. God bless my parents. My father is passed. My mother's still alive. I don't know if they did the best they could or not. That's not for me to decide.
They did what they did.
They did what they did. And who do I want to blame? Do I want to take a look at their parents and their parents and their parents? At some point, it's like, what's the point? How far do you want to go back?
Well, yeah.
The point is that Eric needs to find Eric's path. And for Eric, it has to be authentic. I don't want to belong for the sake of belonging. I need to connect to the world, to the universe. I'm seeking this expansion that I believe that all human beings walk around with this feeling that something is missing, and something is missing. And you know what? Thank God for that feeling.
Yeah.
Thank God for that feeling, because that is the feeling that keeps me seeking, that keeps me searching. Because when the seeking and the searching ends, there's no meaning to life anymore. It literally has no meaning anymore. I want to be conflicted.
Well, I think Thoreau talked about that. He said, you have to lead the examined life. You don't want to just be an excreta machine. You don't want to be somebody who wakes up, eats, poops, and goes back to sleep. And there's a part of us that wants to just experience the wonder of being on this rock hurtling through space. To be saying we on the airplane, because if we're not, then we're not maximizing our time in this incarnation. We're not making the most of having this incredible vessel of energy that can realize what it is. And it's a moment-to-moment thing, and it's not something, it's been my experience that it's not something, it's not logical in the sense that, that if you study it and it becomes important to you, that you just get better and better, and then finally,
it gets worse the more you study it.
Yeah, but you what happens is that you feel sometimes you're most alive when things are turning to shit, because it really reminds you that you are not in control. The only thing you're in control of is how you respond.
Well, that's my favorite line, relax. Yeah. Nothing's under control.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we quote unquote call turning to shit, you don't know.
Oh, exactly.
It hasn't played out.
Yeah, because it can turn out for a very good reason.
But just look at history. Some of the things I wanted so bad that I didn't get, thank God I didn't get them.
Yeah.
In retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the opposite of that is some of the things that I didn't want that were forced upon me by life turned out to be the best things that could have happened to me.
Absolutely.
The bottom line is we don't know. We don't know. What I do know is that in dealing with addicts and alcoholics, there is a sense that every time something doesn't go their way, that something is wrong. And I always have to address that, because it's really basic. Say, listen, what makes you think everything's supposed to go your way all the time? Whatever gave you that idea?
And what makes you think anybody in the world has everything go their way all the time?
Nobody does.
I always consider Steve Jobs, the fucking guy had more money than God. When it came time, 51 years old.
Yeah.
And so there's there's that wonderful thing about, so then let's dance. Let's be light, as light as possible.
Yeah.
Deal with the bad things that happen, acknowledge them, let them pass through us, and I mean, I heard this is an old saw, but let me share it with you, if I may, Eric. The guy, his life had just really gone bad. His wife left him, and his kids hated him, and he lost his job, and his health was terrible, and it was just such a maelstrom of negativity that all he had left was he had to go talk to the master and find out why is this happening to me? So he goes to India, climbs up in the Andes, and goes to the cave, and the master comes out of the cave, and the devotee says, "Oh, master, my life is terrible, and my kids and my wife and my job and my health," and he went on, and the master said, "My son, this too shall pass." And he felt better. So he left, and sure enough, over the next year, his wife came back, his kids found their love for him again. He got a great job, and and his health improved. So he so gratefully went back up, and he climbed up into the mountains, and Master was at the cave, and he said, Master, just wanted to thank you because you were right. My life is beautiful. My kids are beautiful. My wife loves me again. I got a great job. And the Master said, this too shall pass.
Yeah, everything depends on something else.
Yeah,
and that's the beauty of it.
Well, it is. I mean, it is. But and yet you can find these beautiful moments of synchronicity, meaningful coincidence that really are that just make your heart so full. I mean, I in my book, which you can get on, I'm a shameless self-promotion here. You can get my book on Amazon. Just type in "Born in a Fatal Car Crash" and my name, Steve Eastin, Eastin. But I talk about. Well, now I forgot what I was going to say about the book because I'm 76 now, so I'm not stupid. I'm just older. But yeah. I mean, the fact that When I was 6 years old, I lived in a little town of about 1,200 people, really shallow gene pool out there, like 4 names. You had to be careful who you married because you might get a first cousin, A really small town out in the middle of the prairie. And I went to see Robin Hood with Errol Flynn at this little movie house. And I just fell in love with movies. And I asked my dad if we could wait until these people came out from behind that sheet because I want to ask them how they get to do that. Because I'm 6. I thought they were really there. And my dad explained that it was a movie. But the seed was planted, and 2 years later, we drive into Denver. It's about 170 miles across the prairie, and go to the big city. And we went to a park there, and I was playing catch with my dad because I was always after him to play catch. I've been pitching baseball since I was 6 years old, and we were playing catch. And I said, Dad, I figured out what I want to do with my life. And he said, what's that? And I said, I either want to be a Major League Baseball pitcher, or I want to be a movie actor. And my dad, who was a child of the Depression, a World War II veteran, football coach, tough guy, he didn't say, learn a trade, goddammit, get your head out of your ass. He said, it's good you know what you want to do, son. And 30 years, almost to the day later, I'm standing on the mound in Dyersville, Iowa, in a cornfield, playing a Major League Baseball pitcher in a movie. So they both came true at the same time. And not only that, Burt Lancaster, who was one of the guys that made me want to be an actor, him and Robert Mitchum, were just amazing to me. And I was in the last scene he ever did, and after he saves the little girl at the end of the movie, he walks into the corn, and as he's walking through the players, I got to shake his hand and say, "Way to go, Doc." So here I am. I'm a Major League Baseball pitcher in a movie, and I'm working with the guy that made me want to do this. And as he walked into the corn, I thought, oh my God, because he was supposed to do The Old Gringo with Jane Fonda, but his heart was so bad that they wouldn't hire him because of health insurance. So Gregory Peck played it, and Kevin Costner actually took a cut in pay in order to pay for his health insurance so Burt Lancaster could play Doc Graham. And so as he walked into the corn, I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna see this again. And sure enough, a year later, Eric, I'm watching the NBC Evening News, and it comes on the lead story. Burt Lancaster, one of America's most beloved actors, died today at the age of whatever it was. And they showed him through all his movies. And the very last scene they showed was him walking into the corn and waving goodbye. And so from 8 years old saying, Dad, and because of Burt Lancaster, I want to be a Major League Baseball pitcher. That's that synchronicity. And so it's as if, for me, that is a validation of the fact that, like,
you're on the right path.
There's magic in the moonlight. Moonlight Graham, there's magic in the moonlight.
Would you exchange that moment for all the money in the world?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't even exchange getting shot for all the money in the world, because if I hadn't gotten shot, I never would have had these beautiful daughters in my life. I mean, they're the thing that I love most about life. And I'm sure most people do. There's your babies. And no, I that's why, these little meaningful coincidences. I mean, again, the mathematical probability of you and I sitting here in I guess we're in Oxnard now, right? Are we in Oxnard?
Ventura.
Ventura and Ventura. You and me sitting here in Ventura in this room, having this conversation with all the left turns you could have made and the right turns and growing up and the age difference and everything. There is this thing that...
what age difference?
Right. It's very kind of you. But there's this this thing called the divinity of the moment. And when you start to see that more often in your life, the more that you see it, the more that it happens. And the more that it happens, the more that you see it.
Correct.
And some people call it grace. I don't necessarily, because that has again, a guy with a beard and a white robe, sitting on a throne, that feel to it. But they call it grace or good fortune.
There's some reverence there.
Yeah. What it is a religious. Well, it's even the word religion. It wasn't. It wasn't a type of belief structure. The word religion comes from the ancient Greek to realize. It means to make something real in your life. And beliefs aren't real. Beliefs they can be strong and they can be good beliefs and stuff, but they are still accepting without proof.
Correct.
Like my teacher once said, if you want to know what happens after you die, well, die and see.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, what do you want to do?
And what's wrong with not knowing?
Yeah. Well, that's
not knowing is the most profound state.
It's an ability.
It is.
And
it is.
And actually, there's a John Cassavetes. There was an article he was often saying that love is the ability of not knowing, and one of the great writers had a book out called The Wisdom of Uncertainty. I'm trying to think of what his name. I can't think of his name right now. Alan Watts wrote this thing called The Wisdom of Uncertainty, recognizing that we're never going to know. So dance.
That's so profound because. Somebody goes to a movie and they want to tell you about it. And what's the first thing you say? Don't tell me.
Yeah, I want to experience it for myself.
Because it's not that I don't want to know. I want to know firsthand.
Yeah.
I don't want to know through you.
Yeah.
Because what that does is that taints my experience.
Well, they call it a spoiler.
Yeah,
spoiler,
and that's how you used to teach how to audition. Go in there, wrap your mouth around the words, and don't have any preconceived ideas of how the words are going to come out because everybody else will.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to get a job in this business, you got to set yourself apart from others.
Got to stand out.
That's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
man,
all
absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely. Because the left brain, logic is very limited. Because of this, I should feel this. But human beings aren't logical.
No.
Hell no. Why? I mean, if human beings were logical, then
we wouldn't have what we have.
The world would not be in the shape that it's
Correct.
in. I mean, and how boring would it be if it was?
Correct.
You know what I mean? If everything was. I mean, again, the ability of not knowing, the wisdom of uncertainty. I mean, again, it's like combing your hair in the mirror because it seems, wait a minute, you're saying just acknowledging the fact that you don't know is healthy? And I would have to say, yeah.
Well, it's honest.
Yeah, and it's the truth.
It's the truth.
That's
Without belief, it's the truth.
It's the seekers. What are we? We are seekers of truth. Every human being, on some level, no matter if you grow up in a Hasidic Jewish family or you grow up in a fundamentalist Christian, whatever, they're given something that they accept as the truth. But if it's not the truth, again, it separates us as opposed to making us one human family. And that's S&M, sadomasochism.
My sponsor, the wise guy, a very wise man, he says, when we're born, our parents teach us how to be human beings. Some do it well, some don't do it so well. But as we progress, it's our job to learn how to be spiritual beings.
I was told this, and again, this is speculation, but I like the sound of it, is that souls fly around the universe looking to be born to yogi parents, meaning looking to be born to parents that will facilitate their journey towards enlightenment, where we can finally be free from the duality, where we can just be, when we can be pure and perfect energy. And sometimes those yogi parents are terrible parents because you gain by overcoming that, and so it actually pushes. And sometimes they're very wise parents, and but there's no. Even the terrible parents are not necessarily worse than the wise parents because you're getting what you need to move you. I'm amazed at the life that you've had and where you have arrived, and every obstacle that you face, every time you overcame it, it's just like weight training. All of a sudden you just got you you know, I mean, one of the things people say, that which doesn't kill you can only make you stronger. I think that's horseshit. I think sometimes that which doesn't kill you can still fuck you up pretty good. But for the most part, when you transcend this, you know, what Shakespeare called the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, you know, when you transcend that, again and again, you become a warrior.
It stretches you. It definitely, it stretches you. It expands your awe. It pulls you like horses and, you know, from limbs and four
like
different.
Drawn and quartered. Yeah,
and it's wonderful. It's wonderful because that doesn't stay forever. And when you come back together, you're different. Yeah. You're different. And again, you know, perseverance and grit create character, create you walk around with this smirk on your face that you know, I had a dream about a few years ago that I was being executed for a crime that I didn't commit.
Which happens an awful lot in this country.
Yeah. And it reminded me of you know, it reminded me of the scene with, who's the actor, something with angels. Come on, James Cagney.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Right. And I had that persona that they came to grab me and walk me, and I told them, get your hands off of me.
Right.
You know, I don't need to be led. I will walk this because it's the last thing that I'm going to do is leaving this life, and I want it to be epic. I don't want it to be fear-filled. I want to know what's next. I'm looking forward to it. It's a natural progression. Hundreds of billions of people have lived and died on this planet. Why is mine such a gigantic deal? It's not.
Well, that is one of the you know, the when there's a book called the Bhagavad Gita, which is it's a Hindu scripture, but
familiar with it.
What's that? Yeah,
familiar.
It was written by a guy named Krishna, and he was a chariot driver for this prince in India named Arjuna, and at that time India was like Greece, had all these little city states, and they're always warring, and all, you know. So the night before a big battle, Arjuna came to Krishna, and he was troubled, and he had noticed that, you know, the chariot driver was the most important member of outside of your family, because this guy kept you out of trouble in battle, you know. And he knew this guy had always had a lot of girlfriends. They were called gopis, and he was beautiful, and you know, and he's really smart. And so Arjuna came to us and said, Krishna, I'm troubled, you know, and there's something about you. I think you can help me. He said, I don't want to kill these people tomorrow, but if I don't kill them, they're going to kill me and my family. And Krishna said, kill them, Arjuna, for they are dead already. And for some reason, it made Arjuna feel better. And so Arjuna said, okay, who the hell are you? What's going on? And Krishna said, I can't tell you the secret of life, Arjuna, but first you have to answer a riddle for me. And he said, what's that, please? And so Arjuna said, of all of the follies of man, what is the greatest folly of all? And Arjuna thought, and he finally goes, I think, he says, you have to answer this so I know you'll be able to hear what I'm going to tell you, you know. And he said, so what's the greatest folly of all? And Arjuna said, though we see others dying around us all the time, we think that we ourselves will never die. And Krishna said, bingo, or whatever the Sanskrit is for bingo. And then he proceeded to tell him the Song of Light, which is what the Bhagavad Gita means, you know. But that's just speaks to what you were saying, you know. Millions of people have died before, and you know, you turn around, it is the wink of an eye.
It is.
You know, I mean, yesterday I was 6 years old watching Robin Hood, and now I'm 76 years old sitting here talking to you, and that 70 years was you know, a wink. Yeah. And that's okay. Again, you know, I mean, people, again, we were talking earlier about this. People say, at least you're on this side of the dirt. Well, it's a coin flip. I'm suspecting that, because if the law of conservation of energy is true, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it always is. Well, that's the definition of infinity. You know, like we were and are and will be pure and perfect energy. And that's part of our journey, is to realize that, so we don't get caught up in the minutia. You know, we don't get caught up in it, you know, and do self-harm.
It's funny, in talking about all this, you know, I remember years back, my son, he was about 18 years old, Alex, and he called, and he was in a panic because he ran out of gas. And he said, Dad, I'm in the middle of an intersection and I ran out of gas. And my wife heard it and she wanted to run. And I said, son, I know that you'll figure it out. And I hung up the phone. And my wife looked at me like, how? I said, sweetheart, he's in the United States. He's in the middle of an intersection and he ran out of gas. Now, I know his emotions are on blast and he feels overwhelmed, but I want you to really think about if he's in any danger. Right. Yeah, people are honking at him and he's confused and he doesn't know what to do next. And number one, he probably will never run out of gas again. And number two, let him gain some experience. Let him figure it out. Right. Stop trying to protect. You can't protect people from life. He's going to die one day. There's nothing you can do about that. Anything below that, I'd say let him figure it out. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't things that we should jump in and help our kids with, but we have to examine the word help.
Well, yeah.
Help means you do 95% of the work and I help you at 5%.
Right.
But if I'm working harder than he is, that's not help.
Yeah.
That's carrying somebody.
Yeah, diminishes his
Yeah,
abilities.
you're not, there's no character being built there. There's no grit being built there. There's no self-confidence. How do you get self-confidence?
So is he still there in the intersection?
No, he's still there. He's doing phenomenal things.
I know, man. You're a great dad. I mean, too, and I know it's like saying that's like saying you have 2 eyes. You know, I mean,
it's funny when you look at mothers and fathers and the different roles they play. You know, I want to share one other story. You know, my son calls me probably about 10 years ago. He goes, it's about 12:30 at night. He goes, Dad, I'm at the airport and I'm going to the East Coast. And I said, okay. And he goes, and don't try to stop me. And I said, well, I wasn't really going to try to stop you, but can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. I said, what's her name? He goes, well, how do you know it's a girl? I said, son, you know.
I've lived.
Yeah, I've lived a little bit. What's her name? And he told me her name, and they're currently married now. And,
is that right?
Yeah, and so what happens is I told my wife, and my wife goes, how could he betray me that way? And I said, how did he betray you?
Right.
She goes, he wouldn't tell me. I said, there's a reason he won't tell you, because you would have tried to stop him.
Right.
He doesn't want to be stopped.
Right.
Let the boy go. He's 19 years old. Let him fly across the country to go see, you know, possibly the love of his life or not. Let him go get his heart broken and come back. Let him see her with another man. Let these kids experience life. Stop trying to protect them all the time.
Right.
What you're doing to them is protecting them from, you might as well just put a bullet in them now. Because what you get when you protect these kids from life is the very thing that you're complaining about and calling me to help you with.
Right. Yeah.
The very thing you're complaining about is the very thing that you're helping create. You can't have it both ways. You got to let go, because you don't have any control anyway. All the control that you've tried to impose in your life and in your child's life, look at the result of it.
Yeah.
Should we not be result driven? Should we not look at the result of what we call help? I mean, I don't know. What does this have to do with drugs and alcohol? Really, this is a life issue, but drugs and alcohol become the only thing that gives these kids a sense of self-worth or a heightened state of awareness.
Yeah.
But how can you heighten your awareness by dulling your faculties?
It's fool's gold.
It's fool's gold.
Yeah.
And the reason they overdose is because they want more of the real stuff through the fake stuff, and the fake stuff has a death line to it. It's called an overdose.
Yeah.
But when you live the spiritual life and you're exposed to things, you can't overdose on that. There's no overdosing. It's euphoria, regardless of what you have or don't have. The euphoria happens inside of you. Just you're bursting. You walk around with tears in your eyes. You see the leaves. You see the birds. Life is bursting. You see the homeless person's pain.
Awaken to the awe.
Awaken to the awe.
Yeah, that's
You know,
exactly. Yeah, and you can't
do
do
it-
that if you're self-medicating. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you can't do that by hiding out and expecting not to experience the multiple flavors of life.
It's it's so beautiful. What put me in mind, my dad, you know, he what happened was I was on a fast track academically. I would be accepted at the University of Arizona as a teaching assistant. I was the youngest one at that time that ever got this position, because it was a 3-year thing where I was going to end up a professor there, because I had a really precocious undergraduate career. So, but then when I quit, I knew that I wanted to be an actor, and my dad, you know, he would say to me, over the next 15 years, Jesus Christ, Steve, hope you know what the hell you're doing. He didn't say don't do it, but he said, I hope you know what the hell you're doing. And I said, oh, Dad, I got it. I know I can do this. I got it. And it was really a lot of ups and downs and addiction and the tragedies and just a lot of ups and downs. But then after about 15 years, I'd come home and I go, Jesus Christ, Dad, I hope I know what the hell I'm doing. He'd go, no, man, you did great in a really tough business, So
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
somehow
and even the actors that don't have the success that you have, they're still doing what they love.
Yeah.
They're still doing what they love.
That's what follow your bliss. I mean, again, that's the power of Joseph Campbell. Charles was my teacher that actually I took over for. He was a master. He taught Susan Sarandon and Robert Duvall and Nicholson and in my class. There was a little mousy model named Michelle Pfeiffer and Veronica Hamill who did 12 years on Hill Street Blues and Corbin Burnson was L.A. Law.
Correct.
I mean, this guy was a master. And he just that was he was all about Joseph Campbell. You have to follow your bliss. No matter how impractical it seems, no matter the naysayers on both sides are saying, why do you think you can do this? But if you just follow your bliss, then powerful forces will come to your aid,
Just last week I was talking about the tender heart of sadness.
Oh, man. Mm.
These things have stayed with me throughout the years. You have shaped you have shaped my path and shined the light, and I appreciate our friendship, our brotherhood. And we've never, ever had an ill word between us, and we never, ever will. You being my teacher and my senior will always have my respect and devotion. And I say that with the utmost humility because I know for a fact I would not be the husband that I am today, nor would I be the father that I am today if it wasn't for what you went through in your life and what you taught. And so I appreciate and love you more than you can ever understand. I mean that.
I accept that, and thank you. And I never ever say like people. I always tell my students never say I try, because that's disingenuous. Also, trying is a double meaning. It means you're making effort without quite succeeding, and you're also a pain in the ass and one of the most trying people you can ever be. But I will say this, Eric. One hand thanks the other. You inspire me to be a better teacher just by your openness and your sponge quality of and I've had teachers like that in my life as well, and the respect that I have for you is just it knows no bounds because you're giving so much back, and I know it's because it's what makes you feel the most alive is to share this.
When I came into your class, I was in a really bad place, in a lot of pain, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know what to do. And I remember the moment that it struck me what we were doing there, and I came to you and I told you.
Yeah, I remember that moment's in the book. I mean, you came in. He's a good-looking guy, but this guy, he's like a young Elvis when he walked in. He just a strikingly handsome kid, but not a dick about it. Just as nice as he could be. And I didn't know anything about it. He was just so quiet, and his work was just lovely. He always showed up ready to go. He was always never late. Never. But then he walked into my office after class one day, and you said to me, Steve, I figured out what it is you do here. And I think I said, half in jest, but only half in jest, well, please tell me, because I'm still trying to figure it out. Because once you think you've got the answer, that's when you get in trouble. You know what I mean? It's more just finding fascination with the not knowing. And you said you help people learn how to feel their hearts. And that's right. It's a gift, and it was a gift that was given to me, and it's a gift to be able to share it.
I appreciate you putting that in your book. Steve was kind enough to mention me, one of a handful of people that were mentioned in his book by name, and that was just such a beautiful thing. I mean, it's not. I don't want to make a big deal of it, but it is a big deal for me because it's you. Because it's you, and because I know what that moment meant for both of us. And I'm so happy that sometimes moments don't mean the same for both parties. Yeah. Sometimes a moment is much bigger for one person than it is for another. But this was, we mutually got off on that moment, and that was nice.
And the great word moment, if you add an OUS, it's how life should be lived. That's covering up my heart there, but how life should be lived. It should be a series of momentous occasions. I mean, and if you don't have momentous occasions in your life, it seems as if you're not maximizing what you can do with this incredible invention called a human body, and this incredible invention called the human heart. We were talking about it on the way over here, people say looking for miracles. The human heart is a miracle. I mean, the human heart, it starts beating, while we're still in the womb, and then, we gain consciousness. We get popped on the butt, and the heart's beating, 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. The heart's beating. You don't have to say, I think I'm gonna beat a little less tonight, and I'm gonna have my heart beat a little more tomorrow afternoon. It's just lub dub, lub dub, lub dub, and that's. There's a tremendous amount of research that shows that that's where music came from, was the heartbeat. It's the beat.
And what's the only thing we don't feel in the heart? What's the only thing you feel in your head?
A headache. A migraine, man. The only thing I've ever felt in my head was a headache. Everything else I've ever felt has been from my neck down to my happy place. It's our viscera, what we feel in our gut. And this is
it's a good place to launch from.
Yeah, well, it is where it all starts from. It beats, and then what was it? My meditation teacher said was, if you don't think every breath is precious, wait till you're down to your last one and see what you'd give for one more.
Yep.
Just one more. But we spend so much time just lost in thought, and oftentimes those thoughts are what separate us. I think this, you think that, therefore I have to kill you. You're a Muslim, I'm a Jew.
Beliefs.
What's that? Beliefs. Again, dogma.
It's one man's belief against another man's belief.
Yeah, and yet you put them side by side, and you strip down those few things, and the cellular makeup, of our body is atoms, and the atoms, there's the cellular makeup of air is atoms. So in a sense, we're not separate at all. I'm a vibrating mass of atoms in the form of flesh and bone, and you're a masturbating, and there's atoms vibrating between us, and consequently, I think that's the quantum theory of physics, is that we are all just this beautiful, beautiful, pure and perfect energy, and everything else that is an afterthought. It's conditioning, it's upbringing, it's genetic tendencies, it's whatever it is, but it's not real.
It's not.
It's not.
What's real is this moment right
you
here,
and me,
right now,
right here, right now. And that's why I'm convinced God created, again, good woman that she is. This patriarchal society's got us all fucked up, but that's the key. Is that we are one in the spirit. And there's no separation, and that's what Jill Bolte Taylor experienced when her left brain developed an aneurysm the size of a golf ball, and it just exploded. And then she said, she said, and she's so cool. Yeah, you got to get this, read this. It's magnificent. She said, the last conscious thought I remember was, I'm having a massive stroke, and how cool is it that I get to watch it as a neurobiologist from Harvard? And then it just went offline. And she became pure right brain. And she just talked about how she couldn't believe how this incredible energy had fit inside this little body that she had. And she felt this incredible oneness with the universe, oneness with the universe, and that might be our end game, to have that become realized. So that's the realization is that we are just this pure and perfect energy that's just changing form. It incarnated as Eric, and now and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think as human beings, I think we must be courageous. I think we don't all start off the same way. Some have it worse than others, but I think there was a great movie done by Leo DiCaprio called Shutter Island. Beautiful movie, and if you remember the ending of it, it was just a man who could not come to terms with reality because it was just too painful.
So the whole thing was in his mind.
And on a certain level, he knew that he was pretending, but on another level, he knew that reality was too painful.
Yeah.
So he was stuck between. And I think that today, in today's society, a lot of our young kids, if they had a moment of honesty and they took a really good look at their lives and the fact that they're not doing anything other than taking, I think it's painful, and I think that they don't know where to go from here, and that's why we do what we do. That's why I do the work that I do in working with families and with their addicts, because at some point, this show is called Interfere, and the reason we call it Interfere is because there needs to be an interference on this dynamic between parents and their kids, their young adults. Somebody needs to interfere because the transaction that's taking place is deadly, and it's robbing both people
and it's
of their
developed
happiness.
over 20 years.
And it's developed over 20 years,
Yeah.
and more importantly, they don't have the answers.
Right. If they did, they wouldn't be.
They wouldn't be here.
They wouldn't be
so
here, yeah.
I think what happens is, can we sit down and can we have an honest conversation, regardless of how it makes you look? Because if we can have an honest conversation and have the truth be the thing that guides us in the new direction that we need to go, if you have the capacity to say, yes, I'm 29 years old and all I fucking do is take. That's what I am. I don't like to say it. I don't like to acknowledge it, but that's all I do is take. And if it's a parent, if you can say, yes, in my heart, I know what I've been doing is wrong. I just can't stop.
Right.
My kid is addicted to drugs and I'm addicted to him. And
Or drugs or the internet.
Anything else.
Yeah.
Neither one can get off the ride that they got on.
Well, it reflects on them badly, So it's better to sustain the problem and be in denial, I guess,
Yes.
than it is to confront it.
But the thing is that we're running out of time, because I'd like you to have a beautiful ending to your life, which is the awakening. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe you didn't live your life entirely that way, but if we're banking on the fact that we're coming back again, right? We can build upon each life as we come back, if that's what you believe. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that I want to extract every bit of this life as I can.
You want to lead the examined
yes.
life.
Yes.
I don't want to take this for granted. I mean, I have been, again, the religious connotation. I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I've been lucky. Whatever it is. But
chance and choice.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to take it for granted. I want to give, because we're being created every moment. And one of the things that I find interesting too, because they I guess every 3 years, every single cell in our body dies.
Redone, correct.
And then they regenerate, but then as you get older, they less of them regenerate, and we call that aging.
And death.
And eventually, we change, and all death is a transition. I refer to it as he transitioned, or they're transitioning, because if energy is pure and perfect, if it is, was, never shall be, our true form is this thing that makes our body warm when we're alive
Correct.
and makes it cold when it leaves. And they, and this whole thing with Correllian photography, where they've actually photographed the aura of a body, of a light, a bluish white light, leaving a human being at the moment of death, and they've actually captured that. And they also capture that same thing around plants, because it's the life force, And for me, again, I don't buy into theories, but it sounds like that could be the human soul. If we have everybody that wants to talk about the soul, and but they don't. There's not something tangible that they can say. I had a soul. You have a knee replacement. I had a soul replacement last week. I feel much better now. My soul's kind of dark. Now I'm like,
it makes as much sense as anything else.
It even perhaps more, because Einstein said that the golden age will begin when science can verify that which religion has been trying to teach us badly. And that's what seems to be what's happening now. But it's a race, like I said before. It's a race between the forces of light. At any point, the way it's going over with the craziness in the Middle East, Israel, if Netanyahu starts to feel like something he doesn't like, he's just going to start raining nukes on everybody, and that will cause, the end of the world. But it won't end the world; it'll just end mankind.
Correct.
And there's some school of thought that mankind is actually the virus, and
no, it's not a school of thought. It's a fact.
It's a fact. Yeah, but we've done to the planet.
But
in the
the
last
Earth will
200
shed
years.
itself of us when it's had enough.
And it'll go on.
Absolutely.
Because we've actually only been here for just the briefest of seconds in geological time. It's always, I like to say to beautiful young women, in geological time, we're almost the same age. It never works. My calcium is just a little harder than yours is.
So I asked you to do something the last time we were together about 15 years ago, and I'd like you to do it again, because we never know, and your daughters are older now, and I want you to again take this opportunity and to address them and tell them what they've meant to you.
Oh,
yes,
yes. This is a, it's like trying to describe what a peach tastes like, because it's an experience, and it's just they've made me fall in love with love even more than I ever possibly could have on my own, and they have been patient with me, because we all have our dark nights of the soul, and the way that they treat other people is magical to me, because I've always felt like that, I've always felt like that it's better to be kind. It's better to be kind. And I don't suffer fools easily. I don't go around trying to make everybody happy. Sometimes you got to call something to something. But I had an experience, Eric, that I should share with you. That even as I talk about it, it probably means more to me than it would mean to anybody else. But I've been in the show business. Been show business for 50 some years now. I did my first equity role when I was 14. And I did my first SAG role when I was 21, and and I'm 76 now, and I was over at the Paramount lot, and on Paramount there's an entrance off of Gower Avenue, which is just a kind of an unassuming little door, but you walk in and there's a guard there, and that's where the actors go to the offices on the lot to audition. So I had gone in that gate, and I went to audition. And as I was coming back out, you walk down this like a path, this like driveway kind of thing, where there's sound stages on your right, and there's all these false fronts, with doors and everything on the left. And there was a truck down below, and there was about 15 or 20 teamsters and crew guys, tough crew guys, the guys that really make this whole thing happen. And I'm walking down, and I see them, and there's all these doors, and one of them is the door that goes out, and I see them, and I go, "How you doing, guys?" And they go, "Oh, hey," and I went in, And I went in the wrong door. I went in one of the false fronts. So I got in and I realized, oh shit, this isn't the way out. Now I've got to walk out in front of all these guys and they're going to know, they got to know that I missed, because there's only one door that leads out. So I come out and I was expecting to, kind of see them laughing. They had moved all the way down to that door. They were waiting for me to come out. And they said, hey, Steve, how are you, man? It's really good to see you. And I know it was because, if you have any understanding of life at all, if you're on a movie set or in life, really, you treat everybody with love and respect. Whether it's the caterer, the teamster, whatever it is, you treat them just the same as you treat the directors and the producers. You don't high-hand anybody. And these guys appreciated me because I went out of my way to make their job easier any way I could, And the fact that happened it was in a microcosm. That's what I love about my daughters. I can't tell you, man, people that come up to me and say, man, your daughters, they're really amazing, really wonderful, wonderful girls. And again, I'm sure part of it is nurture, because I think I've been a good dad. I've worked at it, but part of it is nature. I think that I was given these wonderful evolved souls, and to this day, I'm there. I'm at their service, because I know they'd never ask me to do anything that would be negative for them.
Gotcha.
If they need me, they need me, and I'm there because I think I told you this before, but they made me a better person because I had to become the man that they thought I was. It was important to me, and so Shane and Danica. There was this thing that I would do, because my divorce was not good. It was pretty ugly, and they ended up being in Chicago, and I was in L.A. because the schools were better, and it's a long story. It's in the book, but I would always text them. Just out of the blue, I'd always text them. I would always say, "There's a guy in Burbank who loves you very much. There's a guy in Burbank who loves you very much." And then it got turned into, "There's a guy in Burbank," and then because they knew what the rest of it was. And then "There's a guy," and then they would finish it, and "There's," And I still, to this day, they're 40 and 34 now, and I'll text them, "There's a guy in Burbank who loves you very much." Because I see the look on your face when you talk about your babies, man. It's one of the best parts of being alive, and I acknowledge. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have kids. With the way the world is, I don't really blame them. I'm but I can't tell everybody my age. Oh, I'm not a grandparent. I'm younger than you are. But if they have them, great. If they don't have them, I don't care.
That's fine too.
Yeah, it's fine too, man. Life is just too rich to take a part of it and find it distasteful. Just look at the whole apple pie.
One last piece of props I'm going to give you is, we met at the intensive outpatient that I own in Thousand Oaks, and I hope that you felt that kindness there and the camaraderie. And because the reason I say that is because I mimicked that, something that you said on, I think, my second or third day in class, and you said, what we provide here is a safe atmosphere for people to explore.
Yeah.
And I took that and I created that at my business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Interfere with me, Eric Evans. I hope that the information has been helpful for you. I know that it makes me feel wonderful to share it with you because we have lives at stake here. So please, if you liked it, if you enjoyed the information, and if you want more, please click on the like, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family. I want to keep it coming because we got a lot of work to do.